Welcome to Trina Talk. Trina Talk is a weekly podcast that will inspire and empower women of all ages to strive for the impossible. Your host, Trina L. Martin from TrinaMartin.com, is a motivational speaker, leader, and cyber tech expert. Every week, Trina will share wisdom gained from her life experiences and lessons learned while pursuing her goals to inspire you to achieve the next level in your life. Now, your host, Trina L. Martin.
Hello, welcome to Trina Talk. I am your host, Trina L. Martin, and this is episode 18. This week's guest is Sarah Williams. Sarah is the founder of Tough Girl Challenges. She is the host of Tough Girl Podcast, and she is just a woman who has strength and determination. She just does not stop. She has completed the Marathon des Sables. She has hiked the Appalachian Trails and so many other things. So if you ever feel like you just don't have enough to keep going, I think this episode will inspire you. Hi, Sarah. Welcome to Trina Talk. How are you today?
I am fabulous. Thank you so much for having me on. It's such a pleasure to speak with you.
Oh, thank you for being here with me. I'm very interested in your story. You are the founder of Tough Girl Challenges. Tell me about that.
Well, I'm going to give you a little bit of backstory as well of how I got into Tough Girl Challenges. So very, very normal. I followed the crowd, did school, did university. All my friends moved down to London. I moved down to London, got a graduate job, started working in banking, did that for 8 years, got to about 32, and I was like, this cannot be my life. Oh my goodness, I'm tired, I'm ill, I'm stressed out, I'm burnt out. I need to make a change in my life. So I ended up leaving my corporate job, going traveling for 18 months. And it was while I was traveling, I really started to think about what I wanted to do with my life. What direction did I want it to go in? And for me, the things that inspired me were travel, adventure, challenge, motivating, inspiring women and girls. So I sort of put it all together and created Tough Girl Challenges, which is what that encompasses. So it's a podcast, it's a blog, it's a website, and it's basically this massive resource for women who like doing physical challenges. They want to get fit, they want to get active, they want to travel, they want to explore, they want to push themselves to their limits and step outside their comfort zone. So I interview women, all ages, all backgrounds, who've gone out there and done these incredible challenges, whether that is somebody who's sailed around the world, whether that's somebody who's climbed the highest mountain, they've become a pro cyclist, or they swam across the English Channel, or run ultra marathons or marathons. And it's all about promoting and sharing their stories.
Wow, that's very interesting. You're actually doing something similar that like I'm doing with Trina Talk, but you're taking a different perspective on that.
I'm very. So I was just going to say, like, I felt as though, especially like women in sports and like fit, active women, don't really get the exposure. Especially if you don't look a certain way, then people may not think that women can go out there and climb these mountains or run these races. So it's great to be able to share different stories and show the variety of women out there who are doing all of this incredible stuff.
Yes, I agree, because that is inspiration to me as well. It's not just what's going on in the boardroom that you can do better at and get inspired as, but these things that you're doing, because you're quite adventurous yourself. I see that you do marathons, you hike. Tell me about some of the things you've done, because I mean, you just have a lot going on.
Yeah. Well, I think because I'm out there and I go to like a lot of schools and talk to young women about challenging themselves and stepping outside their comfort zone, that I can't just talk about it. I've actually got to show people that I'm also, living this kind of lifestyle. So to launch Tough Girl Challenges, I thought, what's going to take me outside of my comfort zone? What's going to scare me? What's going to give me these butterflies in my stomach? And I have run, I've run marathons before. So that, running 26.2 miles was in my comfort zone. I've run the London Marathon 5 times. But for me, it was like, well, how can I make it bigger? How can I make it scarier? And there's this race that I'd always heard about called the Marathon des Sables, which is French for Marathon of the Sands. and it's held in Morocco every single year. The Discovery Channel named it as the world's toughest foot race. It's running 6 marathons in 6 days across the Sahara Desert while carrying everything you need on your backpack. And for me, when I heard about this race, I got those butterflies. I thought, can I be fit enough? Can I be strong enough? Will I be mentally resilient and have enough grit and determination to actually, enter the race and complete the race? And so that was my first big challenge, running these 6 marathons in 6 days across the Sahara Desert. And it did test me. There was a lot of high points, but an incredible amount of low points as well, where I was really started to doubt myself. Why am I doing this again? I've got my blisters are hurting my feet. The sun is beating down on me. I'm not sure I can finish it. Especially there's one stage where you have to run 52 miles in a day. I'd never ever sort of completed a distance like that, but I learned a huge amount from it. And then my challenges have gradually just become bigger and bigger and bigger. So in 2017, I hiked the Appalachian Trail, which is it runs from Springer Mountain, Georgia, all the way up to Mount Katahdin in Maine. It runs through 14 states. It's most through hikers will spend 5.5, 6 months hiking it. It's 2,200 miles. And I thought, well, I've only got 100 days to do it in. Why don't I do it in 100 days? So that's how I spent my summer in 2017, out on the Appalachian Trail, walking 22 miles per day every single day. So that was, obviously a big physical challenge, a big mental challenge. But one of the things that I found from that experience was the emotional challenge of being out there every single day. And so that was challenging. I actually vlogged the whole experience as well, because I think sometimes people can look at you, and especially through social media, they can see you completing something. They can see you reaching the top of the mountain. They can see you completing a race, or they can look at your website or look at you online and think, oh, it's easy for her to do. And it can always just look too glamorous and too perfect. But I actually wanted to show people the real side of what it was like being out there on the trail every single day, and say, look, it's not always sunshine and roses. It's not always easy going. You're going to have these obstacles. You're going to have these tough days. And it's about how you persevere. It's how you carry on going, even when you don't want to. So, there's a couple of big challenges. And as I was saying to you just before we got on the call, most recently I flew over to Vancouver in Canada and cycled down the Pacific Coast Highway. So just over 4,000 kilometers from Canada all the way down to Cabo in Mexico. And then I flew from Mexico. My brother lives in Australia, so I'm just currently in Australia during the incredible summer, just recuperating and letting my body recover for a couple of months before I'll be heading over to India to do a month of yoga and basically to help repair my body from all the abuse it's taken over the past couple of years.
Oh my goodness! So
yes, that's a lot of information. I'm just throwing at you, Dan. So sorry.
Yes, that's a lot. But while you're doing all these things, what kind of support system do you have now? Do you do all this traveling and by yourself alone, and then you do these adventures alone, or do you have a traveling companion?
So I do them all solo. So I do them solo and unsupported. Now for the Marathon des Sables, that was a big race. There was about 1,200 competitors from all over the world. About 200 women do it out of about 1,000. So there's other people around. When I did the Appalachian Trail, I did that completely solo. Same with my bike trip. But I always find is that you're never really alone. You always meet people along the way. And I'm very fortunate. I've built up this community called the Tough Girl Tribe of the women and the listeners and the patrons who support me. So I was actually able to meet up with them as well while I was traveling, which was really fabulous. But sometimes I do struggle to find people who want to go and do stuff like this. So not everybody wants to go run 6 marathons in 6 days across the Sahara Desert or speed hike, fast pack, 2,200 miles in 100 days. So, but I enjoy doing it. I enjoy putting myself out there, getting outside my comfort zone, and seeing what I'm made of, and doing these challenging, adventurous sort of sports and activities.
Wow. You're very inspiring to me, because you're not sitting at home like some women and going, well, I can't do this unless I have someone with me. You got out there, you took the initiative, and you're doing what you love to do. Was that hard for you to start doing that?
I think I was very, very fortunate, because when I was 18, I actually went on a gap year. And so when I was 18, I was traveling through Southeast Asia, Australia, and New Zealand. And initially I did start traveling with a friend, and halfway through she had to go home. And so I then had the option, well, what do I do? So I'm currently in Thailand at this point. Do I carry on the rest of this journey, or do I go home? And I thought, well, why should I limit myself just because it's just me doing it? I'm sensible. I can apply common sense. I follow my gut instinct about my surroundings and where I am. I do apply a lot of common sense when I'm traveling. I do my research. I do my planning. I do my preparation. And I decided to carry on. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me, because it built what I think is to build your own internal self-confidence. You have people who will stand in front of a mirror and say, I'm confident, I'm confident, I'm confident. And they'll say all these words, which is great, but actually it doesn't change who you are from the inside. To actually make a change, you've got to take action. So no matter what that is, because once you've done something which you thought was outside your comfort zone and you've accomplished it, that's when you start really believing in yourself and you really start knowing, hold on, I did that when I was 18. I traveled through Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore, Australia, and New Zealand by myself. So when I did start working, in my corporate job, I did have this self-confidence and self-belief in myself, which, a lot of other women didn't have. And I think that's why I've been so inspired to try and give back and to encourage other women to get out there, to challenge themselves, because I can see how doing stuff and taking action can have knock-on consequences to other areas of your life. And that can be an incredibly powerful thing.
Wow. So what I'm curious about, because you spent some time in corporate and you said when you were 18, you went and did some traveling. You had a friend that went with you, but you ultimately had to continue alone. Where did you get this confidence from? Was it something that your parents instilled in you, or was it something that just developed over time and you finally said, I can do this and this is how I want my life to go? How does that come to be?
I think it definitely did start with my parents. My mum particularly has always encouraged me, and my dad as well, as in just saying, you can do this. You can always do it. Whatever you put your mind to, you can go out and achieve. And I think what happens is confidence grows when you start doing little things. So whether it's doing standing up on stage or reading a poem out loud, whether it is traveling to your first my first half marathon and then suddenly realizing, oh, okay, I've done it. And then it builds over time. So I didn't just go out straight away and run these big races and travel these big distances by myself. I'm 37. Oh, yeah, I'm trying to figure out how old I am. I'm 37 now. And so I've been doing this for a long time. And so it can build and it can grow, and you can get to that point where you think, well, actually, I can do anything I set my mind to. But you just got to decide what it is that you want to do. Do your planning, do your research, and actually start. That's the problem. Some people get so overwhelmed and also sometimes that happens to me. If I look at a big challenge overall, or how am I going to cycle from Vancouver in Canada all the way down to Cabo in Mexico, over 4,000 kilometers? That's a big, overwhelming goal. And actually, this is what happens with women particularly. They look at it and they start worrying about all the different details that actually it stops them from even taking the first step. I think that's what I try and do through Tough Girl Challenges, is to show women, but this is how I progress. So this is from me having the idea. What were the first steps that I took? How did I afford to pay for it? What were my biggest challenges? What were my biggest worries? What did I need to do in order to actually make this a reality? And then people can actually follow along the journey and be like, oh, okay, so she didn't do it all at once. And, oh, okay, so she just decided on her date. Oh, then she just booked her flight. Oh, that's how she handled the bike situation. Oh, this is how she did that. I mean, there's this great technique, actually, which is very practical advice, which I'd love to share, which is called the what if list. So, sometimes it'd be like, well, what if I run out of money? What if I run out of water? What if my bike gets stolen? What if I meet a bear? What if there's a stranger who's making me feel uncomfortable? What if I lose my baggage? And what you do is, when you're in a nice, safe, comfortable environment, so you're sat at home, you get a piece of paper, you draw a line down the center on the left-hand side, you write down every single what if, every single fear that your parents or your friends or your family throw at you, like about traveling solo or doing an adventure, about what what could happen. And then on the right hand side, you go through that and you logically work through. So what would happen if I got my bike stolen? Okay, well, I'd obviously have to report it to the police. I can have insurance on it. I could figure out how to buy a bike. I'd figure out how to borrow a bike. What happens if I, for example, ran out of water on the Appalachian Trail? Well, I can continue walking until I reach the next water source. I can ask a person on the trail for some more water. There's always ways of figuring it out. And that's not to say that doing that exercise, you'll go through every single problem and challenge that you'll face. But actually what it will do is it'll make you think in a very comfortable environment about how you would handle it. So if something like that does happen when you're out there, you've already sort of thought it through and you know that, oh, actually that's not too big a deal. I can figure this out. I can work the problem. And by getting out there and actually doing it, that's how you're building your self-confidence. And I think it is something that grows. And definitely grows. Sorry, I went off a bit of a tangent there.
No, I mean, that is very good practical advice because, like you're saying, most people, when you're doing that and then you encounter something and then you get anxious and paranoid and you're overwhelmed and then you can't think. You don't know what to do. So, for example, with the bike, like you said, if you're somewhere and you get your bike stolen, most people would just freak out and go, okay, what do? I just had my bike stolen. Everything is over. Whatever I set out to do, I can't do it anymore because I've had this hurdle, instead of having in their mind a plan to say, okay, these are the steps that I would take and I can continue on my journey.
Yep, exactly.
So when you're doing all this traveling, because it seems like you've just traveled all over the world, are you traveling with your own bike and things like that? Or do you rent bikes when you get to the place where you're going? How does that work for you?
So that is such a great question. So I actually didn't have a bike before I did my bike trip. So I borrowed my dad's bike to train on, and I trained a lot in the gym, but I couldn't actually afford to buy like a brand new spanking bike. So my plan was, when I flew over to Vancouver, is I would go to a secondhand bike shop, rock up and basically find a bike that I could buy on the cheap. You know, I'm doing this on a massive budget. Sorry, when I say a very small, tight budget, not a massive budget. And I remember, rocking up to Vancouver, going to visit the bike shop, and I've vlogged this, so you can watch this on YouTube. And I walk in, I'm like, "Hi, I'm Sarah. I'm going to be cycling down the Pacific Coast Highway. What bikes do you have?" And they're like, "How much do you want to spend?" And I was like, "Nothing. I don't, what are the cheapest bikes?" And they started showing me all these flash fancy bikes. And I was like, what about those sort of rusted old bikes in the corner? Would they do the job? And that's what I ended up buying, the secondhand, rusty 90s, vintage, CGI type bike. I don't even know the technical specs of it, which was fantastic. And that got me all the way down to California. And then I was actually doing this sort of off-road section in Mexico. So I needed to borrow a different bike because I couldn't afford to buy one. So I actually borrowed a bike from a friend. So one of my listeners from the Tough Girl Tribe knew what I was doing, sent me an email saying, "Hey, Sarah, look, I've got a bike here. It's at my parents' house. If you'd like to borrow it, you can totally borrow it." So I ended up borrowing that bike, ride that bike down to Cabo in Mexico. I did have a few issues sending it back. So I was posting it back by DHL. And so I got to Mexico, got it all packed up, gave it to DHL. Off you go, DHL, do your job. And I could relax. Then flew off to Australia. And then suddenly I thought, I haven't heard from them. Maybe, what's happening with the bike? And realized that the bike actually hadn't been returned. It'd been sent back to Mexico instead of being sent back to California. So now, it was just a bit of a nightmare. So I'm currently I don't speak Spanish as well. So I'm having to call up DHL in Mexico. There's like a 17-hour time difference from Australia. Explain to them I've got a UK mobile, but I'm in Australia and I rode a bike from America, and I need to post the bike back, and they wanting me to come back into Mexico, and I'm in Australia. So that's obviously quite stressful, and issues like this do come up, and sometimes you just got to learn. You've got to go through, work the problem. So I ended up using the power of social media. I emailed the CEO, trying to get this bike sorted, and now finally it is on its way. It's being sent back to the person I borrowed it from. So things like that can be quite stressful. So it's definitely, I think the lesson from that is never borrow equipment. but sometimes I've had to. So for the Appalachian Trail, I couldn't, at one point, I didn't have a tent. I couldn't afford a tent. And I was thinking, because I had to do it very piecemeal, how I pay for stuff. So, 1 month I'll make enough money and that'll pay for my flights. And the next month I'll make enough money, I'll pay for my insurance. And the next month I might buy a piece of equipment. So, that's how I afford to pay for things. I do it very, very gradually. And so, a friend reached out and said, do you want to borrow a tent? So I've always been in a very fortunate position that people want to help you achieve your goals. So when you put it out there and you tell people, look, this is what I'm going to do, 9 times out of 10, people want to help you and they want to support you. And if people aren't helping you and aren't supporting you, then actually it's time to look at your friends and think, actually, who do I want to have in my life? And I think if you put it out there, this is how I find it. I find that everybody wants to help. The kindness of strangers that I've received, while I've been on the road has been amazing. Just people going out of their way to either give me accommodation, give me food, to make sure that that I have everything I need has been, absolutely incredible.
And that leads me to a question. So how do you finance all your trips? Are you getting sponsors? How does that work? Because like you said, you're on a tight budget, and I know all of these flights and entering these events, it can't be cheap. So do you have a sponsor? How do you make it work for you?
Yeah, so I don't actually have a sponsor. So have you heard of a website called Patreon?
Yes.
Yeah. So Patreon is how I make my money. Patreon is basically, it allows individuals to donate between $2 and $25 or however much they want every single month. And I now have over 200 patrons who support me and support the podcast. So that's one way of making income. But I also still work 2 part-time jobs. I do live with my parents at home. So I have a very minimalist lifestyle. I don't really go out. I don't socialize. When I'm at home, I'm working, and I'm either washing. I went from winning a national award. So I won the Beer Game Changer Women's Sporting Trust Media Initiative of the Year award on the Friday night. On the Saturday morning, when I was back home, I was washing the dishes again in the local cafe that I work at. So I do put in the hours to make it happen. I'm very conscious of how much things are going to cost. So I do have that goal target, and I work towards it. But generally, what you'll find is the 2 excuses that people will give is I don't have the time and I don't have the money, and I use them as well. But I also do think at the same time, if it's a priority, if you want to make it happen, you can figure out a way. Whether that's, I sold like all my corporate dresses, I sold them all on eBay. I got rid of like all my handbags, my shoes, etc. Kept one good handbag. That was it. I do odd jobs. I haven't been clothes shopping for I don't know how long. I don't buy DVDs. I don't buy CDs. I don't go out to concerts. All my money goes on experiences. So, I'm not going to lie, it can be tough because I've gone from, having a very well-paid job and, a lovely lifestyle in London to suddenly being, 37, moving back in with my parents, building a business up from scratch, not making any money, not making any income at all for 2.5 years, going into debt to produce the podcast content. As you know, it costs money to produce this and to host it and to host a website and all of this stuff. It does add up. But Patreon has basically been incredible and totally changed my life. Having these individual supporters just allows me to have this regular income, which is enough just for me to sort of travel, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. It does. That's very interesting. And, I'm very inspired by you because, like you said, you left corporate, you've moved in with your parents, you live very modestly, but at the end of the day, you're doing exactly what you love.
Do you know what? I really am, and sometimes I have to pinch myself because I was cycling along the Pacific Coast Highway, looking out over the Pacific Ocean with the waves crashing down and the sun beating down. I was thinking, this is amazing. And yes, I'm cycling for 7-8 hours a day, and it's incredible. But 6-7 years ago, my life was in a completely different place. But because of the decisions that I've made and the actions that I've taken, I am now living a life that I haven't fallen into. I'm not just existing. I am choosing where I spend my time, how I spend my time, who I spend my time with, and not to get too, but I'm basically am living my best life. And that's not to say it is easy all the time, because it's not. And this is something I'm very conscious of what I put out there. I know that people can look at the superficial level and see me going out and doing these challenges and having these great experiences and traveling. But equally at the same time, and you'll know this yourself from running your own business, I would still probably work 15, 16 hours a day on my business, editing the podcast, editing the blog posts, editing the vlogs, doing social media, doing the marketing, doing the research. And there's a lot of work which goes on behind the scenes to make this happen. So when I go on big trips, my podcast still continues to run, blog posts still continue to come out. And how I do that is I preload content. So I can preload 3 months worth of content in order to give me a bit of space while I'm on the road traveling. And that in itself is a huge amount of work, just, to do your normal podcast and then to do double again. But I found for me, that's what I have to do in order to make sure that my business continues to run while I am traveling.
Yes, I agree. It is a lot of work. And I'm right there with you. People don't realize that podcasting costs and it is work. So for that, I commend you, because you're getting 3 months worth of content. That's a lot of work. That is
huge amount of work.
Yeah. That's a lot of work. And then to do that, to make sure it's scheduled, and then you go out and travel, that's even more work. How do you keep yourself from just being overwhelmed? Because when you're planning an event that you have to travel, it's going to be on X day. So, okay, I have to have my content ready. I'm pretty sure at times that can get stressful with you doing the planning for both things. How do you keep yourself sane through it all?
Just such a great question. It's something I've been really thinking about. What I found is sometimes I can be looking around and thinking, right, I've got to edit all these vlogs, I've got to edit the podcast, I've got to write these blog posts, I've got to do, the to-do list always goes on forever. And sometimes you can spend so much time thinking about all the different stuff you've got to do instead of actually doing it. And what works for me is just doing one thing. I pick one thing, I pick the most urgent thing, I just do that and I focus on that. I try and switch off from social media to do it. But over the past, I'd say 4.5 years, I have shared so much of my life. I've documented my journey of growing Tough Girl Challenges from, the blog to the podcast to the vlogs, etc. And actually, it's one of the reasons I'm going to India in March, is to basically have a total detox. So my body's also been through a lot with the hiking, the cycling, the running. And so when I go to India, I'm going to have a month of a complete digital detox and no social media, even though the podcast will be preloaded, so they'll continue to come out. And all I'm going to do is yoga, eat vegan, vegetarian food, drink water, and have this mind-body break. So by the time I come back in April, I will be completely recharged and re-energized. That's basically my plan. And it can get overwhelming, and sometimes it's just a case of just picking one thing and doing the best that you can. And that's all I keep trying to do, is just try and do my best. I am organized. I do have to-do lists. I do have spreadsheets. I'm very clear on my mission, on my goal, what I need to do and how I need to do it. And it's not a question of it being difficult to do. It's just a question of getting it done, as in everybody knows how to do what they need to do. Or when you're in my world of the podcasting and blogging, I know how to edit the podcast. I just got to go through and do it and then upload it and get everything scheduled. And sometimes it just takes time, and you've just got to start and get on with it and be organized, but also, listen to your body. And I think this is a great thing about what I do now, is I have this freedom in terms of, I don't set an alarm in the morning. I wake up when I wake up. If I need to sleep for 10 hours, I'll sleep for 10 hours. If I'm waking up at 6, I'm waking up at 6. That's fine as well. And I'll get straight on to work. But then if I'm tired in the afternoon and need a power nap, I'm going to take a power nap. Or if it's like, actually, you need to go outside and get some fresh air, I'll go for a walk. So the only schedule I need to keep is my schedule, so I can work my life around me and what works best for me. Obviously, you will always have appointments with other people, which you have to keep. But apart from that, my life is my own to decide how best to spend that time.
Wow, that's a beautiful thing. Now, with your schedule, do you have a set schedule? Let's say, such as you're going to travel 6 months out the year, or do you just plan as things come up that you want to do?
I just plan as things come up. Sometimes I'm better at it than others. So back in November 2016, I was very aware of how I wanted my 2017 year to look. So I knew that I was going to be through hiking the Appalachian Trail. I knew I needed to finish in September because I was starting my master's in October. So by working backwards, I knew that the first sort of 4 months were going to be all about the podcast. Then I'd be through hiking the Appalachian Trail. Then I'd be starting my master's, and that was very, very clear. And then with 2018, I knew my master's would finish in August 2018. So therefore, I would be free from September onwards. So therefore, that's when I scheduled in my next big trip. And at the moment for 2019, I don't really have a schedule. I don't really have any plans. I do like being planned and organized. But on the flip side, sometimes you've just got to see what happens and see what opportunities are going to become available at a future date. And I think after you do a big challenge, you can sometimes get the adventure blues, and you just need to take some time to decompress and readjust and just think about, hold on, what do I want to do next? Is this the direction I want to be going on? What's the next challenge going to be? And also get yourself mentally and physically ready to do it. So sometimes it's okay or I find it okay to take a break, take a couple of months off, and then just see how I feel in April, basically. And just take it from there. I do have a massive bucket list. There's so many things I want to go and do, and so many things I want to achieve. And especially when I speak to the incredible women on the podcast and I hear about some of the challenges that they've done, I think, oh, I'd love to go sail around the world, or I'd love to go and hike the Pacific Coast Trail or the Continental Divide, or then go and run the Tuaroa Trail in New Zealand, or go and walk the Camino. There's so many things out there that I'd love to do, and it's just finding out what's going to be a good fit for me, what's going to work well with my timeline, with how my body is, how my body's like coping physically, because sometimes I do pick up injuries, etc. So sometimes it is going with the flow.
Wow. Sometimes that is the best thing. Now, going back with, like you mentioned about, getting your body ready and healing your body, I would assume you have always been athletic. What has made you do things on this level that you're doing things on now?
Yes, I've definitely always been quite sporty and quite active. So I played lacrosse at university and did rowing. Then when I did start my corporate job, all of that basically fell away. And I think when you're in your 20s, you don't necessarily realize it. Well, for me, it definitely became about the career. And you're suddenly working very long hours, 7 till 7, sometimes later. And exercise just became didn't really happen for a number of years until I thought, right, something needs to change. And that's when I started training to do the London Marathon. But it's just physically, like I really enjoy doing challenges. But what I found, so for example, is running the London Marathon is I would start training in, say, January. The London Marathon will be in April. So it will be 4 months of training, 4 months of, intense effort. And then it's all over. 4.5 hours later on the day, it's done. Marathon des Sables, it was 18 months worth of training, and it was over after a week. And so what I found is that I wanted it to last longer. That's why some of my challenges now are like sort of 3 months, the Appalachian Trail, 100 days, because I just get so much enjoyment and so much pleasure from being out there and from having this purpose every day and from being fit and active every day. That actually I'd rather the experience lasted longer than the training, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So how do you inspire, or do you inspire other women as you're doing your traveling that you come across? Because I would imagine when you're meeting, because you said you've met people along the way, those people are similar to you as far as being driven and doing what they want to do as far as the adventures. Is there ever a time where you've come across someone's path that you had to inspire them and say, hey, you can complete this event? I've overcome XYZ challenge, and you're giving someone some inspiration and support, even though you're there doing the same thing that they're doing?
Yeah, yes, I think it's more the words of the women on the podcast that I speak to, and when they share their stories. I think their voice is coming out, their message, what they're saying, and because all the women are different, and a lot of them talk about challenges they face, whether that's cancer, brain tumors, whether that's dealing with anxiety, talking about mental health. The other topics which come up quite a lot is around fear. Fear of failure, fear of letting your friends down, fear of being judged by other people. And so, I do have my own story, my own journey that I've been on. I know what works for me, but I'm a very driven, action orientated person, and not everybody is like that. So different people get motivation, inspired in different ways. And I think that's why it's so important to have this wide range of women that I interview, different ages, different backgrounds, different challenges, because there'll be stories which resonate with other individuals. And I get emails all the time, because of you. But one of my favorite ones though was Sarah, because of you, I've quit my job. And I was thinking, oh my goodness, why have you quit your job? Like, I'm not sure I want to take responsibility for this. But then, she went into detail. She said, I've been doing this for so many years. I'm not happy. I haven't been happy for a while, but actually I've decided I need to bite the bullet. I need to make a change. This is what I'm going to be doing. I've had other women who've written to me saying, I decided to I had this really bad day on one of my cycle adventures where I was in the middle of the desert. My bike ended up breaking. The two guys who I was traveling this section with ended up leaving me in the desert, and I had to physically push my bike out for like 12 miles through very mountainous, tough terrain. And I wrote this all down in this sort of blog post and shared it. And a girl emailed me saying, Sarah, thank you so much for sharing that. I've been really struggling with my depression at the moment. And I thought, if Sarah can do that, then I can get out of bed today and have a shower. So sometimes it can just be, the little things that can make a difference. And to be honest, it's also somebody just believing in you, somebody saying you can do it. Because sometimes there's so many people out there who are scared, are fearful, and it can be your closest friend, your friends and family who don't mean to, but maybe don't give you the support. But if you've got somebody who believes in you and say, look, you can do this, you can do it, you just have to start, that can be incredibly powerful. And I think, for me, being able to believe in these women, to be able to respond to their emails, respond to their messages and give them that encouragement, or, to recommend a certain episode that will be helpful for them, that can just change their perspective and change their view and think, well, actually, okay, well, if she can do it, then I can do it.
How does that make you feel when you do get the emails from your listeners saying that you have inspired them to achieve their next level in life? How does that make you feel inside?
Oh, it's emotional. Like it really it gets to you. I mean, I've had tears reading some emails that people send to me, and it's why you do what you do. It's when people come up to you and say, after I listened to that episode, I went and did this. You're just like, oh my goodness, like I've just had this direct impact on your life. And no, I love it. It's one of these. It makes me feel good. I get a massive sense of pleasure and enjoyment from it. But then the thing that I'm also very conscious of is the knock-on consequences. It's this ripple effect. So this, I inspire one woman. That one woman, her family and her friends will see her go out. If say she's gone out and done a 5K or run a half marathon, went and run a marathon, whatever it may be, then her friends and family are going to be looking at her, being inspired by her, thinking, oh, wow, Susan or Sharon or Tracy or whatever has gone out and done that. Well, maybe I can try something. And then that woman will then inspire her friends and family. And you cause this ripple effect. I think that's why it's so important to get women's stories out there in the media so they can say, oh, hold on, everybody doesn't look the same. Everyone doesn't have the same body shape. And actually, you can take up running in your 60s. You don't have to be an Olympian. You can be a grandmother. You can be a young person, a middle-aged person. You can be a single mum. You can be a divorced mum. You can have children and not have children. There's no right or wrong way of doing it. And now I've got, over 180 episodes of women doing these amazing, incredible challenges. And it's only going to increase. And as I continue to share their stories, and it will just create this ripple effect. It's about It's about showing or other women being able to see other women doing it. Because if you can see someone who looks like you doing it, then you start thinking, well, hold on, if she can do it, then I can do it. And that's where the change can happen. And I feel incredibly privileged and honored to be in this position where I have a platform and I can help to motivate and inspire the next generation of women and girls.
Wow, that's amazing, because you are an inspiration. I'm just listening to you, and you are really inspiring me. And I laugh because a lot of the things that you're saying are things that I say on my podcast and that I say to myself. And it's good to know that there's other women out there who want to inspire and lift women up, because I think so many times we as women don't do that. But when you do find, because my thing is, I want to use my voice to, just as you said, I've been through some things and I want to share that with other women so that they don't have to go through that. And if I can help one woman or inspire one woman, that's what I'm doing this for.
I mean, I definitely say for me, working in a corporate environment, I found I didn't think it was that other women were that supportive, and possibly I wasn't that supportive because it is so cutthroat and there's so few women doing it. That I sort of struggled in that sort of environment because it was a competition. Like, when you work in banking, it is a competition. You're trying to hit your targets. You're trying to make the sales. You're trying to do what you need to do to be number one. And then now I've changed and I'm in this sort of like this adventure podcasting entrepreneurial world. What I found is it's about collaboration. It's about women working together. It's being guests on other women's podcasts. It's about sharing different stories. It's about sharing these different voices. And actually it helps everybody to grow and develop and to get women's voices and stories out there. And it's just incredibly powerful, and everybody does have a voice, and it's just making it louder, which is, podcasting is such an incredible platform to do that as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, you are on the same sheet of music that I'm on. I totally agree. Now, I want to transition to, you're getting your master's degree in women and gender studies.
Yes. Well, yeah, go on. I'll let you ask the question.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, no, I was just going to say, the reason I wanted to do this was because I started to build up Tough Girl Challenges, and I started to, to build this platform and to create this resource for other women. And and obviously with what's been happening in the world with Donald Trump and the Me Too movement and, gender equality and the pay gap and all of these different things. And I think I really wanted to learn more and understand how I can help. And so I wanted to go back to university just so I obviously do a lot of talking, but sometimes you need to be quiet and to listen and to learn and to really try and understand it. And that's for me, that's what I needed to do for last year, was to go out there and actually to sit down, to study, to actually think critically about what is happening, what are my views, what are my thoughts, how can I help solve this problem. And it was, I mean, last year doing the masters, working 2 part-time jobs, planning a big expedition, my big cycle challenge, and doing everything else I was doing. It was incredibly challenging, but it was also this great opportunity to connect with other women who feel strongly about it. It was a great opportunity for me to write my dissertation, which I wrote on women, adventure, and fear, and for me to really try and to dig down into understanding more about women who adventure. And I suppose one of the things I found is when you listen to men talk about challenges and adventure, they'll talk about it as a very this is what we did, this is how we did it, so we went and climbed this mountain, this was the kit. Whereas for women, they'll talk a lot more about the internal journey. These were the fears I was having. This was the learning experience. This is how I overcame it. This was the journey for me. And I think that's really, really fascinating, just in how women communicate and just how men communicate as well. So so that's why I did my master's. I just wanted this opportunity to study and to learn and to just increase my knowledge.
That is very interesting. And I never realized it. What you just said is how men will relate their experiences and how women relate theirs is totally, they communicate them from different aspects. Like you said, the woman is doing emotional, where the guy is telling the actual tactical piece of, this is how we did it, this is where we went, whereas a woman is telling more of how she feels and just the emotional side. And that's really funny how, yeah, we're so different that way.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. I even noticed it when I'm interviewed by men for their podcasts, and even like the type of questioning. Whereas women, when they interview, I mean, it's everybody's different. It's all good. It's good to have this diversity. But it's just one of the things that I've noticed, especially from speaking to the amount of women that I've spoken to. The things that stand out for me, or the common themes, are generally things like fear, especially mental health, mental resilience. Grit, determination, focus, having goals. This is also the fear of judgment, the fear of not being loved, the fear of failure. There's definitely common themes.
Now, do you think that those are the common themes among women, because that's kind of in our DNA inherently? That's who we are. We're the nurturers and the people who are planning the lives of either ourselves or family, children. Do you think that's why? Because it goes beyond color barrier or social economics. It seems like every woman is just like that.
It's so difficult to even say. Like, I wouldn't even know how to even begin to answer that question. I just wouldn't know enough about it I'm still massively learning, and this is the thing, it's such a big, massive topic. It's I'd need to do more research.
Mm-hmm. Wow. I mean, I listened to several episodes of your podcast, and it's amazing. Like you said, just the women that you speak with and their challenges and things that they've overcome and how they're getting out doing it. And you're amazing as well. I'm sitting here listening to you, and I'm so glad that you took time out to do this interview with me, because I'm learning something that, I mean, I never knew anyone like you who just quit their corporate job and decided, this is what I love to do, so I'm going to go do it. And who basically they're putting physical demands and goals on their bodies, but you're actually achieving your goals. You're setting out to say, okay, I'm going to run this marathon or hike, whatever that may be, and you're getting out and you're doing it. Do you know how many people just, they want to do those things, but like you said, fear, they don't do it.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. That's very kind of you to say.
I think more women need to see women like you, because even though it may not be to the level that you're doing something, it's just the fact of knowing that I can do whatever it is I set out to do. I just have to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it does build. It does build. Like, the more that you set yourself these little goals, mini challenges, and the more that you complete them, the more it builds up your own confidence. Thinking, well, actually, if I set myself these challenges and I put in the work and I figure out how to do it, then actually what's to stop me from setting slightly larger goals and bigger challenges? And it will just continue to grow, and along with your confidence, because actually what you'll have is you'll have all this evidence behind you saying, well, actually, I set myself that goal and this is what I did to achieve it. And I went out and achieved it. So you can look and you can learn from those experiences. But equally, exactly like you say, it is about sharing these stories, showing other women out there, getting their voices heard. And it's inspiring, and that's all I hope it does. It makes somebody think about their life and really take that time to think, hold on, what do I want to do? Not what my parents want, not what my friends expect of me, not what my peers, not what society expects of me, but what do I want to do? How do I want to spend my time? What is important to me? What is my ultimate goal? What is the type of life that I want to be leading? What does success look like to me? And when you really know those answers to those questions, you start to know yourself, and then everything that you're striving for is going to be coming from the right place. And it's then just a question of just going after it. And then actually you're suddenly living your best life, and you're living life on your terms. You're not existing. You're choosing the life that you want to lead.
Wow. Well said. And that, since you have said all of that, that's transitioning me into 10 questions that I ask every guest. And their questions just to get to know a little bit more about you, just kind of whatever comes to mind. They're not embarrassing or anything like that, so you have nothing to worry about. So I'm going to go into that. Are you ready?
I'm ready. I'm pumped. I'm excited. Yeah, let's do this.
Okay. What or who motivates you?
Oh, what or who motivates me? Well, actually, do you know what? The first thing that came into my mind was Tony Robbins. I actually wanted it to be a woman who motivated me, so I'm disappointed in myself. But Tony Robbins, incredible motivational speaker, has got great books. Awaken the Giant Within. I actually went and saw him live in London. I can't remember the name of the event, but it was the one where you end up walking over burning coals. Mm-hmm. So I ended up doing that. So I find Tony Robbins incredibly inspirational. And I've also Mel Robbins as well. Her 5-second rule, that's incredible in terms of getting things done. Although 5 seconds is too long for me, I need to say 3 seconds. So have you heard of Mel Robbins?
I have actually. I heard her speak. I went to a conference where she was speaking at, so I did get to see her live. So I enjoyed
fantastic.
It. Yeah. Okay. So what demotivates you?
What demotivates me? What demotivates me? Not being appreciated. I think sometimes when you're really passionate about what you do, and you know how much effort that you're putting into something, and then you know the value, you know the importance, you know why you're doing it, but sometimes actually not getting recognized for it, that can be really, really hard. And that's more to do with my ego than anything else. When I feel as though I should be getting more recognition for the work that I'm doing, and so sometimes it can be demotivating to think I'm putting in all of this effort. Why aren't more people listening? Why aren't more people listening to podcasts? But then that doesn't last long, because then I do bring it back. So sometimes I know that that's about ego, and that's a lesson that I'm still learning to handle.
Okay. When was a time that something was said or done to hurt you, but it worked for your good?
Oh, well, the only thing I could think about is so when I mentioned briefly about being in the desert doing this off-road section and being left in the desert by these two guys, and they were very aware that I vlog my trips, but I don't create content. I just document my lifestyle, so I just share what's happening. And I think that's going to be a really interesting episode when it comes out on the vlog, because when I start out, I'm like, oh, it's going to be fine. The guys will have waited for me at like an hour and a bit. Yes, they won't be able to fix my back rack, but at least they'll know what I'm doing. And then I'm still filming, sort of 4 hours later, and it's become apparent that they haven't waited for me. It's now going dark in the desert, and actually they have just left me there. And then I'm thinking, well, obviously this is a bit of a nightmare because I can't contact them, but this is actually going to be good footage, because unfortunately, this is a real life situation. This is what happened to me. And I'm just continued to film it as I went through those different emotions of thinking, oh, the guys who waited for me, no, they haven't waited for me. They have actually left me in the desert. So yeah, I suppose that's the only thing I can really think of that. Yeah, it'll make a great vlog. I'm looking forward to that episode coming out.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I'm going to tune in for that one. What is your fear?
Oh, fear of not being loved, fear of not finding a partner, fear of not being finding a special soulmate, a special person to have adventures with.
Okay. Is there a time when you wish you had done something that you didn't?
there a time I wish I had done something but I didn't? No, like nothing. No, I try not to. No, I can't even think of anything. What would I have? I
Okay.
normally take opportunities. I normally say yes to opportunities. Yeah, I can't think of anything. Sorry.
Okay. Is there a time that you wish you had not done something?
Yes. So the big cycle ride that I did. So I cycled on the road, the Pacific Coast Highway from Vancouver down to San Diego. And then when in Mexico, there's an off-road section called the Baja Divide. And so I needed to get like a new bike for that section. It's off-road, it's very remote. Basically, I wish I hadn't attempted to do that at the same time, because it basically just caused a lot of extra stress and anxiety. What I should have done is I should have kept my original bike that I rode and rode down the roads in Baja and not tried to do the off-road section. I tried to do too much because I needed two different bikes for this challenge. I needed two different bike setups, and it just ended costing me a lot more money than I was expecting. There's also a lot more stress of, when you borrowed someone's very expensive Surly mountain bike and then it potentially being lost by DHL, and then thinking, well, I'm obviously going to have to replace it. In hindsight, I should have just ridden on the roads all the way down. But that's a learning experience. That's feedback for me to take on board and for me to evaluate my next challenges. So there's lots of positives coming out of that.
Okay. What is your definition of success?
Freedom. So freedom of choice, financial freedom, freedom of movement, being able to live life on my terms. That's success for me. Being able to do what I want, when I want, with who I want, wherever I want.
Okay. How do you recharge?
I love having baths. I love sleeping. I love spending time in bed. I love the sunshine. I love a good massage. Just that sort of stuff does it for me. Chilling, relaxing. Yeah, sleeping, massage, spending time in the sun, reading, watching some Netflix, not doing anything. I'm very extreme, so I'm incredibly lazy. Like, so I won't even walk to the shops if it's 2 minutes away, but I will obviously go walk 2,200 miles in 100 days. So I'm very extreme.
Okay. What are you awesome at?
Talking. I like talking, and I do talk a lot, but equally I do listen very, very intently, which some people may not necessarily know because they probably think I just talk too much. But you know what? It's how I communicate best. I love the fact that I can speak to these incredible women and share their stories. Talking.
Okay. What legacy do you want to leave?
Oh, it's such a great question. I want to leave the biggest resource for women about adventure, travel, and challenges, such as Tough Girl Challenges, so that, even in 10, 20 years time, somebody goes to the website and there's over 1,000 interviews with about, with 1,000 adventurers. There's also, I will have followed certain adventurers throughout their career as well. So speaking to them when they were 21, first starting out, speaking to them when they were 23 after a big challenge, after 27, after 30, every couple of years, so that people can go back and think, oh my God, this is her journey. This is her story. This is how she started. I think that's just going to be incredibly powerful to have this library, this resources of these women's voices, and for there to be vlogs available and blog posts. So a big educational resource, and be the leading expert in women in adventure. That would be a great legacy.
Okay. Well, before we leave, what is one motivational takeaway that you want to leave with the listeners?
If it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you. And what I mean by that is you've always got to be growing as a person, or else you're stagnating and your comfort zone will end up getting smaller and smaller and smaller. So you've got to keep challenging yourself, keep pushing yourself. You've got to keep growing and developing. You've got to keep learning new skills. You've got to keep stepping outside of that comfort zone. Keep growing and developing as a person. Just get better and better and better.
All right, Sarah. So tell the listeners where they can find you, your social media platforms, your podcast, your blog. Tell us all about that, where we can find you.
So the best place to go is toughgirlchallenges.com, and on there you can find more information about me, the Appalachian Trail, the Marathon des Sables, the big cycle challenge down Pacific Coast Highway. There's all of the links to the Tough Girl podcast. There's the Tough Girl blog. There's also links to my books, and that's at toughgirlchallenges.com. I am active on social media, most active on Instagram, especially Instagram stories at Tough Girl Challenges. So you can come and follow along and see what life is like for me on a daily basis. My stories sometimes prove hugely popular, but it's fun for me to be able to share more behind the scenes, what I get up to, how I prioritize, how I get things done, how I make sure that I'm really productive and not just busy all the time. I also share more about like my training, or especially when I'm training for a new challenge. But yeah, just come and check out toughgirlchallenges.com and take a browse, have a look through, and hopefully there'll be a woman on there which will motivate and inspire you.
Well, Sarah, you have been very inspiring to me, and I just want to say thank you again for taking time out of your very busy schedule to be here with me and do this interview.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure, and you asked some awesome questions. I love the questions at the end. They were fantastic.
Well, thank you. If you're looking for a speaker for your live event or conference, go to my website and read my bio and contact me at bit.ly/book Trina. I hope you have a great week. Until then, remember, if you change your mindset, you'll change your life. Keep striving. Success is a journey, not a destination. You can listen to Trina Talk anytime and anywhere. It's available on iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher, Spotify, and all other places that you can listen to podcasts. If you like the podcast, please don't forget to go to iTunes to subscribe, rate, review, and share. If you have questions for me or need inspiration on how to go to the next level, tweet me directly at Trina L. Martin.